Hey guys, welcome back. So first and foremost, I want to let you guys know that my Discord is up and now we have a designated place where we can talk about so many things within the Dope Spillmonger community. And I'm very excited, so link below, head over to my Discord and let's talk about everything. Comics, games, movies, you name it. And full disclaimer, I'm still figuring out some stuff over there, so you've been warned. But it's coming together really nice and I'm very excited. So there's that. Can't wait to talk to you guys. But for now, getting back into our talks of the Avengers and the age of Khonshu, which at this point continues to hunt with Mark Spector, accumulating the powers of the different Avengers in order to protect the universe from this incoming threat, or so that he's been told, because we still got our speculations going on at this point. So let's get into it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week, and don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so jumping right back into where at this point Mark Spector, he has pretty much just ran through a majority of the Avengers to where if he is not like face to face outright defeated them, he's more or less found some sort of loophole to either take a portion of their power or outright take all of it, with Khonshu telling Spector that this power is needed in order for him to protect the universe from the unspeakable upcoming dangers that will be brought on by the devil. And I kind of feel like with the way that this was done, like Jason Aaron mapped this out like very carefully. Because with Doctor Strange, we've seen his power taken before, that's nothing new. Thor having his hammer controlled by someone else, though it's surprising the way that we see it implemented here, once again it's not a totally new thing, so there's a bit of a safe zone with that. And I also feel like with Ghost Rider the situation is pretty similar, with Moon Knight not taking him head on but just taking his car. Because otherwise had we seen Ghost Rider versus Moon Knight, and I mean like in an all out winner takes all battle, and with any Ghost Rider at that. Because a lot of these dudes been getting upgrades and switching titles lately. But with any Ghost Rider versus Moon Knight, please believe in any and every scenario, I'm going with Ghost Rider. So I'm glad in that case we didn't get a situation where Moon Knight just ran up and beat down Ghost Rider. But all in all, I do feel like with the power that he's collected thus far, and where that takes us in part 2, that all of that has been handled quite carefully, which we'll get into more in just a little bit. But at this point where we have Mark Spector, who's a bit unhappy to say the least, with him seeing this crazy vision of so many things being destroyed, and initially believing that this was a vision that was given to him by Khonshu. He then makes his way to Khonshu, initially to let him know that he's done with the madness, and that he no longer wants to deal with Khonshu playing with his mind and throwing these crazy visions in there. But when he finds Khonshu, this is where he finds out that these visions weren't from him, but rather Khonshu had seen these visions as well. And when Mark finds Khonshu here, Khonshu is terrified. He's curled up in the corner and he tells Mark who is responsible for these visions of these great and unspeakable terrors, which ultimately is the reason behind why Khonshu has been having Mark collect all these powers in order to combat what's to come. And the name that Khonshu gives Mark who's responsible for these visions, as it so happens, is Mephisto, who at this point in time is locked up in Vegas in Hotel Inferno, and he's been locked up there for quite some time, like since Doctor Strange Damnation. And we've seen other visitations for Mephisto in other series like Thanos Wins, but all in all, Mephisto, he's been doing a bid, like he's been in here for a minute. But with him being locked up here and seeing Mark Spector show up, to whom with doing so, Mark lets him know like, hey Mephisto, I'm here to end you. But Mephisto, he's kind of chill about it because he's like, okay, first of all, this place is bound by the Sorcerer Supreme, so nobody's getting through. Not nobody, not never. And really what he means by that is like, with the exception of the time that Thanos had came back in time and walked right into his cell, smacked him around, and he did so just to get the point across to tell Mephisto not to make Frank Castle a Ghost Rider anytime after that or at any point in the future. So when Mephisto said nobody, he was talking about nobody except for that one time. But because at this point Mark has taken power from the Sorcerer Supreme, he's easily able to walk into this cell. And at this point it's like, okay, you got the cell open, cool. But after that, then of course you got to deal with Mephisto. And when this happens and Mephisto attacks, Spector is able to defend himself using the mystic arts. But also when Spector mentions his accusations to Mephisto and then continues by telling him that he'll stop him, but even then it's interesting that Mephisto doesn't confirm or deny those accusations, whether he's the cause of these horrific visions or not, but rather he's more concerned about the part of how he's going to be stopped by Moon Knight. And that answer comes crushing straight through his torso in the form of Mjolnir, which for the record isn't like a permanent kill type of situation, because after this Mark then plans for Mjolnir to take pieces of Mephisto and separate them millions of light years apart across the universe, just to ensure that he doesn't come back anytime soon. But it's at this point, after Mephisto's incapacitated, when Khonshu kind of peeks out of the shadows like, is he dead? But he then lets Mark know like just spreading Mephisto across the universe, like that's not gonna last. But then after that, Khonshu calls for Mjolnir and lets Mark know that he's done a good job and he's gonna take it from here, which in most cases isn't a good sign, and this is no exception. And we see this jumping forward 2 weeks later to where we find that Khonshu has used the powers which Mark has collected, and he's used them to reshape the world the way that he's seen fit. And at this time, still doing this, proclaiming the reasoning that he's doing this to fortify the planet and prepare it for a danger that is still coming. And this version of the world as we see it is the makings of the Age of Khonshu, with pyramids popping up, his statue on every block, mummies patrolling the streets, and even the skies littered with a cluster of moons, to where inside you can constantly hear a muffled thunder of a god trying to break free. But it's from here we then jump over to T'Challa, the Black Panther, who as we've seen from before had surrendered himself as a prisoner, but with doing so he's also refused giving up the power of Bast, or even his position as the avatar of Bast. And leading up to this point, Khonshu has not been able to take the power of the Black Panther because it's literally running through his blood. And throughout this past 2 weeks after T'Challa had turned himself in, he's been beaten and tortured by the different acolytes of Khonshu, and they all black. So brothers and sisters, before you go ham in the comments, relax. Because I gotta say, this is another thing I felt like was delicately handled. Because in an event where you have all the powers of all the Avengers being sought after, which eventually will come around to the Black Panther. And for me, it really made me think like, okay, Jason Aaron, he's gotta skate this thin line on how this is depicted and how it's handled. Which at its core is T'Challa once again refusing to initiate violence, but with doing so refusing to surrender his power and demanding to speak with their god directly. And when Mark gets there, he demands everyone to leave so he can speak to T'Challa alone. And immediately with doing so, T'Challa lets him know like, okay Mark, I know you crazy, but you done crossed the line. And it gives us this moment to where on one hand you have Mark who's trying to plead with T'Challa and tell him like, look, they're gonna kill you unless you give them what they want. And on Mark's end, there's a lot of frustration because he believes that T'Challa just not making the right decision. And even with showing T'Challa the visions that he's seen, he's pleading with him like, just look, give them what they want, because we've seen the future and both you and the Avengers lose because you cannot do this on your own. Like we've seen the future, the Avengers and everyone else, they fall in their attempts against Mephisto and whoever else he's working with. But it's also here where T'Challa lets Mark know like, look, Khonshu is playing you. Because all this is just another attempt for Khonshu to claim all power, and Mark, you're falling for it, like you're falling for it hard. And on top of that, if what Khonshu is saying were to be fully true, then let him come out here and reveal to both of us his full truth and let that settle it instead of just foolishly believing everything that he's saying. But it's also here where Mark is called away by another one of Khonshu's acolytes who let him know that more Avengers have been found. And it's here where Mark assures T'Challa that he's not a complete fool because he didn't give Khonshu all of the powers, and as a result he's kept the spirit of vengeance kind of as a piece of insurance, because there's a part of him kind of like, well, what if I did mess up? Like if I did, I'm gonna need something to get out of this. But after Mark leaves to find the other Avengers that have been said to have been spotted, when the acolytes return, T'Challa then just breaks out of his chains, reminding them that he was there by choice and letting them know from this point forward that they can pretty much kiss his Bast. But after this, we then come to find that the next two Avengers who have been spotted are Carol Danvers and Tony Stark, who are then surrounded by Khonshu's mummies. But it's also here where the pursuit of power takes a bit of a turn, because it's also here at this point that we find out that much of the focus is being taken away from just getting the power from the Black Panther or from Captain Marvel or even technology from Tony Stark, but instead the focus is now being shifted towards capturing and taking the power from the Star Brand baby, which as of now seems to be like the main source of power which Khonshu wants, which at this time is only being protected by Tony Stark and Captain Marvel. And aside from this, possibly the Phoenix Force as well, with us getting a slight reference to it in the previous issue, but we'll have to see how that goes, because that's another thing you ain't just finna run up and snatch. So for that reason, this might just end with the chase for the Star Brand, which is still an insane amount of power. But at this point, with the Star Brand being wielded by a baby, it really turns it into a taking candy from a baby situation. And so now real quick before we go, I just want to give a shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all your support, and for anyone who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link down below to where you can head to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and as a reminder, this is day 1 of my Discord, so make sure to swing through there and say what's up and get to know other spillmongers while you're at it. But I'll see you guys there, and we'll do it again in the next one. Alright, later.